Welcome to a series on Messianic Expectations that are background for Acts 17. The Messianic Expectations in Acts 12 is a 12-part series. This is the 11th part. Parts 1 through 6 look at Old Testament scriptures that were related to the Messiah. Parts 7 and 8 looked at two intertestamental books, Psalms of Solomon and 1st Enoch. These provided context for Messianic hopes, dreams, expectations in the time between Malachi's last writing and the New Testament first century. Songs of Solomon are written probably 60 to 30 BCE. The Enoch was written someplace between 300 to 0 BCE, before Christian era. It's critical because you see the images of the Son of Man, the Ancient of Days, and the Lord of Spirits, which seem to be reflected in the New Testament words of Jesus. Enoch is a book where we do not have very many good references. The only copy of this originally Aramaic piece is a second copy in Coptic from the intermediate copy of Greek. So the text is questionable. Maybe someday they will be discovered in a cave with a rock and a clay jar. A first copy of Enoch in either Greek as the intermediate text or in the original Aramaic. Now, Part 9 and Part 10 went through the Samaritans and Pharisees, and Part 11 is going through the Essenes. Let's talk about the Messianic expectations of the Essenes. The community, Qumran community of the Essenes had a classical foundation of this worldview. And this picture is a picture of the Essenes that lived on the desert, that there was a worldview in the third and fourth comma of the manual of discipline for the Essenes. This sectarian view is ultimately based on the doctrine of dualism, which divides the world into two warring factions, the faction of light and the faction of darkness. And every divine act, every act in this world is guided by that duality. The Essenes had this faction of light with an angelic leader of Michael, the Prince of Light, who guarded Israel. And it had human factors, the members of the Qumran community. And they had a belief in predestination. God will fight, let the fight occur until he halts it. Now, this battle was set before the world, and before they existed in their entire design, they have come into being at their appointed time. They will execute all those works according to the glorious design without altering anything. That's from the Qumran. For you have created the just and the wicked. Now, the faction of darkness had an angelic leader, Belial, the prince of depravity, and a human who was human beings who were opposed to the Qumran sect. They could be evil ones under God's ultimate control, or they could be just dissuaded. Those who are rich now would be destroyed later. So there was a great deal of asceticism and plans. Now, the war in the heaven and the earth were between these two forces, and the writings of these scenes have eschatological visions, wars in the heavens and the earth, and only the good Essenes will be spared. The esoteric wisdom, that which is hidden for the spect, was not to be revealed to others, and each Essene person, man, woman, child, were to find out their task and to be part of the war. You know, in this war on heaven and on earth, each Essene must find his or her place in the battle. The Qumran says, you have shared the task in all their generations. You should walk everyone with the measure of truth and regulation of time. And to be united to the counsel of God and walk in his perfection, complying with the revealed things at the regulated times. of their stipulation. And finally, to fulfill the will of God with all revelation. This shows you that every scene must find its place in the battle. Now, the Qumran community believed in two messiahs, an anointed high priest and an anointed David king. They called Messiah 1 the Messiah of Aaron, the high priest. In Talmud, it's the righteous priest. In Qumran, it was the Zedek priests, which are different than the high priest, which they felt had gone into apostate. And the second was Messiah 2, the Messiah of Israel, the David kings. They also believed in Malachi 4:6, where the prophet Elijah will appear before the day of the Lord. They were anxiously awaiting, and they were working to try to see, as they best knew it, how to bring the kingdom about. Well, that's a short bit on these scenes. We could go into them in great detail, but their hopes were clear. What's not quite as clear is how the philosophers, the apologists in Alexandria dealt with the people who were either Essenes or Messianically inclined. I'll pick up some of that in our next presentation, the final part on Philo, the Alexandrian philosopher, and his work, which is a counterpose to these direct Essene works. Thank you for listening, and we'll join you for the final segment of this Messianic Expectations in Acts series.